Muy buenas tardes, mis amigos. Your Excellency and Plenipotentiary Ambassador Arcieli, lo siento mucho que mi español está un poco terrible, pero necesita su translación para la mayoría de mi speech. Everybody is saying it. What in the world is going on with President Trump? He is deconstructing the traditional leadership role of America and its president, which have traditionally advocated for freedom, justice, human rights, and unlocking economic prosperity for all. The president is attempting to deconstruct the post-World War II NATO alliance. He is deconstructing diplomacy with North Korea. The president seeks to deconstruct the Paris Climate Change Agreement. He is deconstructing the Trans-Pacific Partnership. The president is deconstructing the Iranian nuclear agreement. The president is deconstructing the trust of the press by calling things fake news. The president is deconstructing the staff and the way of the traditional American order at the State Department and at every department in the United States. I could go on, but all of these international agreements and American principles have been keeping America the global superpower, which is to the disappointment of Russian dictator Vladimir Putin. So things should be deconstructed. After all, President Trump's first campaign manager, Paul Manafort, was paid over $60 million by the Russians, and President Trump's real estate deals were bolstered by billionaire friends, including money laundered through the Bank of Cyprus and Deutsche Bank. So shouldn't Russia receive a return on her investment? That's a lot of money to give a friend without any return, wouldn't you say? Putin would rather see America bogged down in internal political fights, internal racial, tribal fights, and global ally fights. Russia would rather see America ganged up on and brought down by an axis of many, including North Korea, Iran, China, Russia, and others. Make more enemies in the world, and Putin has America exactly where he wants her. It reminds me of a Spanish matador match where the matador is sticking the knives in to kill the bull. But this time, there are multiple matadors, and their names are nations of the world turning against the United States, like North Korea, like China, like Mexico, European allies, Russia, and more, because America becomes so repulsive to the many through the actions, tweets, and policies of President Trump. America would be then isolated rather than allied. As each nation pays back Trump for his insults and barbarism with new trade agreements, new partnerships, and that don't include the United States. In essence, nation matadors thrusting knives into America's slow but certain death. So today, the title of my talk is International Relations in Action with President Trump and Steve Bannon's deconstructionist, Leninist New World Order. Early in President Trump's term, in February of 2017, about a month after he was sworn in, his former campaign manager and senior advisor, Steve Bannon, revealed why he and President Trump are so different in their actions and their policies. If someone tells you what he is, believe him. Bannon says that he is a deconstructionist Leninist. I'm going to repeat that again. Bannon, and by extension Trump, are saying they are deconstructionist Leninists. And President Trump's actions, the question I asked at the beginning, what in the world is going on with President Trump, make a lot more sense when you understand that. At the Conservative Political Action Conference, also known as CPAC, Bannon said, "Lenin wanted to destroy the state, and that's my goal too. I want to bring everything crashing down and destroy all of today's establishment." I think it sounds like anarchism, personally, but it might be just short of that because of the greed involved. I asked a political science professor, what is it to be a Leninist? He said, well, it's not a common political science term, but remember that Lenin, through political party revolution in Russia and through authoritarian rule, in the name of workers and national pride, expanded Russia into more states, created the Soviet Union. My personal belief is that in the false name of worker and American nationalism, President Trump and Bannon want to ally the United States with Russia so that Putin can restore the lost glory of the Soviet Union. This comes in part through the economic policy of lifting sanctions on Russian oil to the United States. ExxonMobil asked the Treasury Department, the US Treasury Department in recent months, if it could drill alongside Rosneft, Russia's state oil company in the Black Sea, which is banned by the United States economic sanctions put in place after Russia's annexation of the Ukraine. Our Secretary of State, Rex Tillerson, was ExxonMobil's CEO in 2012 when the company struck an exploration and drilling deal worth $500 billion. Yep, that's $500 billion with a T. The US Secretary of State, Rex Tillerson, later received Russia's Order of Friendship Award from President Vladimir Putin, but that arrangement was largely put on ice with the implementation of sanctions. The State Department is one of the agencies that helps the Treasury decide whether it will grant a sanctions waiver. So imagine the wealth of Rex Tillerson, our Secretary of State, would get in his retirement stocks if these sanctions were lifted. I have a sneaking suspicion that through the usual real estate and bank laundering that Russia has become famous for, somehow, as President Trump proclaimed, he would become even richer as president. Anyone remember him saying that? Just watch, I'll be the only president who actually gets richer in office. He said that. And if, as some analysts say, Putin is the world's wealthiest person, what's to say that being a close number two wouldn't feed President Trump's ego to be the top American billionaire? If political advisor Karl Rove was former President George Bush's brain, as they would say, so too is Steve Bannon, except he is both Trump's brain and sword to enforce the evil movement on America and the world. In fact, Bannon's primary goal in targeting Republican U.S. senators in this upcoming 2018 election is to get rid of Republican establishment senators and get rid of the filibuster. The Republican Party can't see Trump is their enemy because they're too blind in power and too unaware of the history and methods of authoritarianism. Steve Bannon is going to target every Republican senator except Texas Senator Ted Cruz. If they get rid of the filibuster and change the Senate, they can also override Russian sanctions and ram through more of the white supremacist Trump agenda. Here is his stated goal. He wants to get rid of Republican Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell and the power to stop legislation that the president wants. After all, Senator McConnell recently this year led the Senate in a law that prohibited President Trump from getting rid of Russian oil sanctions. The filibuster, maybe it's not in all of your countries, but the filibuster is defined as a strategy employed in the United States Senate whereby a person in the minority party that is out of power can delay a vote on proposed legislation by making long speeches or introducing irrelevant issues. A successful filibuster can force withdrawal of a bill. Filibusters can be ended only by 60 votes from members of the Senate. An American founding father, Alexander Hamilton, writing to Thomas Jefferson from the Constitutional Convention, argued the same fears regarding the use of pure direct democracy by the majority to elect a demagogue who, rather than work for the benefit of all citizens, set out to either harm those in the minority or work only for those of the upper echelon. United States founding father John Adams also talked about the checks and balances of protecting the minority from the tyranny of the majority. To understand the global international relations among nations today, one must understand that the chaos we're watching today is not just crazy, but it is crazy like a fox and focused on the deconstruction of the world order that has held together since World War II. There are many actions that President Trump and his advisors are taking that have been used by Vladimir Putin in other nations to destabilize and win elections in those nations. There are also some striking things that Dr. Soto and the Global Embassy for Activists for Peace has been asking all of us to reanalyze, which is the possibility that in the pursuit of authoritarianism, that President Trump may scapegoat minorities, particularly people of Latino descent, and create another Holocaust in the name of tribal white supremacist economic nationalism. Here is how the genocidal march looks from the comparison of history. Hitler marginalized the Jews as a cause for job loss, economic stress in families, and the decline and loss of Germans in World War I. President Trump marginalizes Latinos and immigration for job loss, economic stress, and a lack of national identity, which he talks about as part of the national decline. We're losing our country, he says. His thinking, in short, is America is no longer great because of people who are different than whites and immigrating to the United States. So let's make America great again and push policies that hurt minorities, to the point of even making the Puerto Rican hurricane natural disaster a strain on the budget of the United States. He said, "You are really busting our budget," when he visited Puerto Rico after the hurricanes. Another lesson of history for the rise of dictators is the co-opting of political parties to make a new party. Hitler started with the German Workers' Party. It morphed into the Nazi Party. Much like President Trump has started with the Republican Party, I believe it will become another party. I wouldn't be surprised if it's the America First Party or the Make America Great Again Party. They aren't making it a secret. They are using this playbook from the past as Bannon is trying to get rid of current Republican senators and other Republican establishment figures is a textbook example of how this happens. He appears to be struggling, the president, with inclusion. One could argue that his policies are heading to be more about a white supremacist society rather than anything else. To be American, he equates with being white. Make America great again, make America white supremacist again. Everyone else is not American. They are not welcome in America. Build a wall, send them back, are logical policies of such thinking. The civil rights and civil liberties that America has are no good anymore. We, the white dominating race of America, can manhandle our own affairs and throw out our problems. His ideas are not particularly original. In the past, 100 years ago, más o menos, America made Italians, the Irish, Chinese, Japanese, Jews, many immigrant groups, outsiders in the past. But thank God, our recent history understood the benefit of being an inclusive society. And certainly the vast majority of Americans are totally against President Trump's extremist temperament and antics. Hitler used media to shape his image. President Trump is one of the great media propagandists and spinmeisters of all time, using Twitter and other news sources, including anarchist news sources like InfoWars, to manipulate American public opinion and confuse people on what is true. Many historians look back at some of the bad things that happened to dictators, often in their childhood, that made them rule with an iron fist and not be open to the cries of those their reign of terror would victimize. Hitler had a harsh, authoritarian father who raised him. Hitler had very few friends in his teenage years. He was not educationally or professionally successful. He even lived in a homeless house for a time. I believe the event that Trump was most traumatized by, and we all have things in our childhood that affect us as adults, was the death of his brother, who was an alcoholic. He was very close to his brother. And on his deathbed, his brother told him never drink a drop of alcohol. President Trump never did drink a drop of alcohol in his life. I'm not a psychologist, but my own take is that when his brother died, who he was so close to, his entire world became in chaos. His entire world became upside down. He never understood why this happened to me. His ego never understood why his world would be turned upside down, and if his world would be turned upside down, he would make others live in chaos and in unfairness. And to know that he can do it gives him a sense of gratification as a narcissistic abuser. To think that he can do it to the largest, most powerful country in the world, America, and make his mark in history is a very sexy prize for a narcissistic abuser. Trump's father was arrested for participating in a New York Ku Klux Klan white supremacist group demonstration. And when he was an adult, President Trump was fined by the United States Justice Department for discriminating against blacks that wanted to live in his properties. He has a long history of being willing to bump up against the law in order to keep people who he doesn't like out. Yes, this should be very closely monitored. for a modern-day genocide watch. Hitler was a draft dodger. So was President Trump. Hitler got into the military intelligence unit, an ultimate source of power and surging for his career. Trump is aided by intelligence of Russia and other American rogue intelligence sources, both with abhorrent things to say and doing it in ways that would energize and captivate audiences like InfoWars and WikiLeaks. Hitler used German nationalism to rally people in fiery speeches. When someone suggested that Bavaria try to break off from the rest of Germany, Hitler argued against the idea and impressed the leader of the party with his speaking style. He became a popular speaker on the beer hall circuit. I suppose getting people drunk is the best way to make people think that policies of genocide and hate are worth fighting for. America has forgotten these lessons, so we may be doomed to repeat them. Unless our schools, media institutions, political leaders, and civic organizations, like the Global Embassy of Activists for Peace, help us empower a more informed resistance against tyranny. The Democratic Party and leaders of the world must also offer concrete economic policies to alleviate the economic concerns of people in the changing information technology economy, where individuals see their jobs being replaced by robots, automation, outsourcing, and computers. The Democratic Party and resistance must say that we can't scapegoat Latinos as the reason for job loss in America. We cannot play into stereotypes about NAFTA and cheap Mexican labor being the reason Americans are losing jobs, but Democrats must offer scholarships and paid apprenticeships to convert the skills of American workers to where the jobs in the information technology economy are. A bold plan is necessary, or people will see the selfish America first political rhetoric as appealing and continue to let their freedoms and their country be trampled over in favor of what they think President Trump will bring as the almighty dollar to their families. Germans were shocked after World War I that they lost the war. Pride, hubris, nationalism caused them to think that surely they could not lose. They had food and coal shortages and millions killed and wounded in the war. To figure out how Germans lost the war and how things happened, the people turned to conspiracy theories, particularly the conspiracy theory that the Jewish people on the home front had stabbed Germany in the back. Today, Americans turn to websites that are conspiracy theories, like Breitbart, which is the website of President Trump's campaign chairman, Steve Bannon, and InfoWars. Yes, history does repeat itself, if we let it. Violence marked Hitler's early rise, and so has it with President Trump in his speeches, saying, "I wish we could knock the hell out of these people," and grabbing women and condoning hate group rallies. Hitler gets support of industrial leaders. Unfortunately, some industrial leaders in America support Trump today. This is how the rise begins. Trump needs to be able to take control of the House and the Senate for the sake of giving him authoritarian powers. Bannon getting rid of the filibuster, the 60-vote majority that America's founders set up to protect minorities from the tyranny of the majority. Now Bannon and Trump want to take it away. If they have a movement of primaries to rid Republicans out in the establishment who put their country ahead of power and party, then Bannon and Trump will succeed in making an American dictatorship and a new world of the US supporting Russia, Russian dictatorship through oil partnerships will happen. America needs human rights legislation that properly labels conspiracy and propaganda websites. Beware, information may be harmful, should these websites read. In my opinion, websites like InfoWars and Breitbart should no longer be able to purchase the suffixes .com, but instead be labeled .cp for conspiracy and propaganda, or better yet, .con, for they are websites of con men. People wonder how our Secretary of Energy, Rick Perry of Texas could be over a department that oversees nuclear weapons when he actually called for the abolition of the Department of Energy when he was running as a presidential candidate. People don't understand how the administrator of the U.S. Department of Environmental Protection Agency could be suing the Department of Environmental Protection Agency over clean air regulations. People don't understand how the Secretary of Education, who doesn't believe in public education but in private charter schools, could be nominated over the Department of Education. Or how could the drug czar, who was recently nominated to fight opioids, be the person who weakened the law against opioids? But President Trump and Bannon made it clear in literally saying it's because they want to deconstruct everything about the administrative state. They want to deconstruct everything about the world order. They want to be deconstructionist, Leninist, authoritarian, and connected to Russia as a new revival of the old glorious Soviet Union, a union that will be not finished until a central governmental authority can control the entire economy and trample the people of the world into a slave gangster dictatorship. Most Americans do not know history well. Most Americans do not know the lessons of the Holocaust. Most Americans have never had an analysis of how Hitler and other dictators have risen to power. For if they had, this textbook version that Trump and Bannon are putting forward would have been resoundingly defeated, and so would this impending threat to world peace. The Global Embassy of Activists for Peace is needed in the United States. May we not just conduct forums like these, but may we invest in television campaigns to reach America during her favorite pastime, which is watching television. Or may we work together to create online campaigns educating the public on the warning signs of tyranny. We need the world to help us push a campaign of laws and a campaign of reaching out for understanding among our brothers and sisters who need economic prosperity. We need to have a skilled trade retraining program led by the Democratic Party in order to turn things around. If we don't offer policies that help people make money, they will slip into the evil hands of those who are really talking about only making money for their greedy selves. But I know I've come to the right place and the right people to turn this around. The forces that are for us are far greater than the forces that are against us. We just need to be stronger and smarter in getting humanity to think what is the best course for survival of the human family. As we leave this conference, let us return to our countries more committed than ever to work towards our vision of world peace, order, and respect for one another. We are all brothers and sisters in Christ, and we must always join hands, reach out to each other, and constantly work for the greater good, for ourselves, our planet, and each other. May God bless, guide, and bring us victorious in this struggle. Thank you.